650 shows, Suzanne? Really?
It is.
Wow, that's a lot.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality.
Hey everybody, welcome to No Vacancy Live, episode 650. That's Dr. Producer Suzanne filling in for Anthony, who's away on assignment. I, of course, am Glenn Hausman. Thank you so much for watching. Suzanne, how are you doing today?
I'm feeling a little green. I couldn't have my pineapples in the background. I think our friend Craig is going to be a little disappointed, but
yeah,
a green shirt and green pineapples on a green screen don't work.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest with you, Suzanne. We're all a little disappointed right now about this, but we're going to have to come together. We're going to have to get over it. Fortunately, I'm in a very forgiving mood because yesterday I had to do my favorite thing is lie around like a whale on a beach. It was beautiful. I just kind of sat there. People threw fish at me and I went, and it was really a great day. And I took a great nap for about 20 minutes.
That's really all you did for Father's Day?
Well, a couple of my friend came over with his family and we brought in a place called the Spare Rib, which has been delighting us since 1979 out here on Long Island with their great take on barbecue ribs. Not smoked, barbecued, totally different kind of vibe, but yummy, yummy, delicious. How about you?
We didn't really celebrate yesterday. We did so on Saturday, and we took my husband to the St. Lucie Mets game where the Mets do their spring training. So it was an experience.
And this is one of the minor league clubs, right?
It is their minor league team.
That's pretty cool. So I will tell you, overall, I had a great experience. It was all about us coming together and doing something in the spirit of togetherness, something that meant something to all of us, right? And one of the things I've realized, Suzanne, in my life is I don't need a lot of things. I mean, we all need things, and I like to have a nice house, and obviously, I love my Traeger smoker. But I don't need things anymore. I kind of feel like I have everything I have, right? So it's really about connecting with people and experiences. And I think that that's something that we're seeing more and more in travel these days. But to talk to us a little bit about that, we got Sarah Eustis. She's the CEO at Mainstreet Hospitality, companies that's been firmly rooted in this for years. Sarah, great to see you. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. This is a real treat.
This is really excellent. You know, we've done 650 of these. Suzanne told me last week I've done well over 1,000 podcasts now in my life, and we haven't had a chance to do a show together yet. I can't believe this, Sarah.
Well, I'm privileged to be here.
Well,
but I made the cut.
I'm privileged, completely unlucky. I don't know. It depends on how you. It depends on how you look at it. Well, we'll see. So. Sarah, Mainstreet Hospitality is great. And Suzanne, why don't you kick this one off with sharing a little bit about what you know of Mainstreet?
Well, just simply because I was a Massachusetts resident for quite some time and definitely had opportunities to head up into Great Barrington. You've got some great historic hotels that are listed within the Historic Hotels of America registry. Maybe tell us which one is maybe either your favorite or is like the closest one to your heartstrings for its historic history.
Oh God, you're making me choose between my children. It's not.
Oh, that's right. That's why we ask the tough questions here on No Vacancy Live. You can't escape.
Yeah, this is hard hitting right out of the gate. Yep. So it's not. They are all, and I mean this when I say that all of our properties, whether they have historic relevance, which many of them do, or whether they're brand new, which some of them are, they are all. I feel very emotionally invested in all of them. The Red Lion Inn, however, is really where it all started, and it is the property that we have that has been owned by our family for 50 years, and probably has the most resonance and kind of layers of history of any property that we steward currently in our portfolio. So it kind of all roads lead back to the Red Lion, and it's a lot of where our culture came from and where we started our company. So.
That's pretty cool. But you did it, starting the company and stuff, by doing something a little bit different. It was really hospitality elevated. I've had a chance to look through some of the portfolio. I'm familiar with some of the properties, including one exciting project coming here this summer, but Long Island, I mean. So tell us a little bit about what you're thinking about when it comes to connecting people in meaningful ways, because we've been talking about this as an industry for a long time, and the closest we could come to it is saying that we have lifestyle hotels and that we create experiences, but I don't necessarily know what that means, particularly when you throw the word meaningful in front of it. And Sarah, I'm as guilty as anyone. I say that all the time. How do you view meaningful experiences in your world of hospitality?
Well, that's it's the heart of the matter, and it's important that we can be specific and kind of put our money where our mouth is, if you will,
Right.
because there is a lot of kind of nice talk about placemaking and experiences and lifestyle, and it's all good. And I'm thrilled that more independent hoteliers and branded hotel people are thinking about that and focusing on it. So it's nothing but good. I guess the way that we think about it, that I think maybe I'd like to think we go a few levels deeper.
Right.
And it came through my family and the way that I was raised. And it really is this kind of if we focus on the emotion of the experience, just like you were saying in the beginning, not just the stuff.
Right.
The stuff is the cost of doing business. The bed's got to be perfect and the bathroom's got to feel great and all of that. But the emotion of what the experience feels like from the minute you walk in, to the connection that's made with you, to the lighting, to the arrangement of the furniture, to the thoughtful touches that are in the through the experience.
Right.
We take all that incredibly seriously. I'm a little OCD about it, so that's probably why.
Yeah, well, good for you. Finally, it's paying off, right?
So your backdrop there is Hammett's, for example. So when you think about that viewpoint, even just there, we were incredibly intentional. I guess that there's an intentionality.
And this property is in Newport, Rhode Island.
Yes, and we opened in 2020 in the midst of,
Yep.
the unknown.
Yeah.
So I think, we train our teams to build connection and build empathy. And we have very specific ways of demonstrating how you can break connection or you can build connection. And I'd have to put you through our secret training program to tell you how we do that.
Yeah. All right. And unfortunately, I'll be sworn to secrecy, so it won't help.
Yeah.
It won't help anyway. All right. Then I'll just admire from afar, not in Rhode Island, sadly, right now.
Yes.
Suzanne?
Well, I guess from that vantage point, when you're very intentional and each property has a different flavor to it, if you will, how do you make sure that you can, especially nowadays, procure what items that you need to continue to create that unique experience at each of your properties?
Yeah. And do you mean just in terms of the environment and the actual physicality of the spaces?
Sure.
Or the people, or maybe both?
It could actually be both, really.
Both of which are hard to find right now.
Exactly.
Well, let's see. I'm trying to think of how to answer that thoughtfully. We're pretty good. We're kind of obsessive planners, and we work with amazing project managers. And even the hotel in Newport and the one that we're opening in Hampton Bays, Long Island this summer, they're 3-4 years in the making, easily.
Easy, yeah.
So Suzanne, to answer your question, the planning of the resources, the expectations of the business model, the development of the culture of that particular property under the Mainstreet umbrella is we put in hours and hours and hours of devoted attention and planning. And then sometimes it works out the way we hoped and sometimes it doesn't. So once you get into operations, ensuring that we have the resources to fulfill the promise that we established from the beginning is something that we also take very seriously. And we try to work with our owners and partners to be sure that whether it's capital or whether it's time or whether it's patience on the part of the lender, all of that is something that we pull all those levers to make sure that we can deliver, to answer your question.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the fact that it's creating experiences is really a ephemeral. It's done through people. It's done through creating moments. It's done through allowing people to do things themselves, I would guess. So, how do you go about setting the right environment to make that happen? You said something, and while you think about that, you said something interesting about having everything, the furniture in place and all that being just the basics. One of the things that I talk about is I feel like everybody does everything amazing, 98% really amazing with all of that stuff. So it's that last 2% that I think is really what makes a difference. So how do you view that last 2%, and how do people remember your properties because of it?
Well, I'll give away one of our little secrets, and I guess I'm doing this live, so here we
Sorry,
go.
I've had an NDA to the entire listening audience. So
It's just, but the greatest thing about the hospitality business is sharing ideas, and I love connecting with other people. We practice something called connecting the dots, and I stole it from my friend Danny Meyer.
Oh, that's
You
cool.
can give him credit.
Yep.
So,
in case the one person out there who might not know who he is, famous New York restaurateur,
yes,
did a lot of great concepts, including a Shake Shack coming to a city near you.
there you go. Yeah. So and he and I talk about this a lot, but in the vocabulary of how we think about that 2%, exactly. What is that special sauce that's different? We really focus on connecting the dots. And what that means is for our staff and for ourselves, listening, watching people's body language, picking up on cues, looking at the luggage tags on somebody's suitcase, listening, or not stalking, but overhearing a conversation, watching people's energy and trying to get a sense of what they're feeling and what they're needing. And we use a dot as a data point, and it's actually a hardcore piece of information that we then will weave into the experience later, that we will use to enhance that particular experience for those particular people, not assuming that we know what they want or that everybody is created the same, right?
Well, yeah, that's the tricky part, is really not only trying to understand what will delight people, but surprising them at the moment they're receptive to something like that as well.
Correct. And we also like to say that there's a big difference between these little words called to and for. Yeah. And there's a lot of things in hospitality that happen to you, because somebody thinks that's what your VIP amenity should be, right? Right. But it's very different when you feel like it's happening for you. And it does take more time, and it does take more attention. And even with a slimmer staff that everybody has these days, with the connecting the dots kind of exercises that we train people for, you'd be amazed at this simple, to your point, Glenn, you don't need more stuff. Right. What you need is having someone recognize that you're hungry at 4 o'clock and you just need some nourishment, and they're going to help you get that. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. It makes me think of the great beef jerky I used to get at the Georgian Terrace, for example. Right,
exactly. But we find that the connections, coming back to this notion of we're not magicians, and this is not rocket science, and there's so many people who do it well, but we spend a lot of time really focusing on those emotional connections with people.
Could you give us a hypothetical example of something?
Yeah, not even hypothetical. I'll give you a real example.
Excellent.
And we were just talking about it in one of our sessions the other day. So one of our guests at the Red Lion Inn was in last week. She's a repeat guest who loves coming, and she was loving something on the menu that was resonating with her. It actually had a tomato base, and she was going on and on about it. So our server, without asking permission from anyone or needing to be told, went back into the kitchen, talked with the team, got her the recipe, got her a basket of tomatoes that were coming from the gardens from where we were sourcing them, got them to her room with a handwritten note. I mean, nobody just did it of their own volition. Right. And it's just a simple thing. It was a couple tomatoes. It's like $2.50, like 82 cents.
That's right. And that is, but
life.
That's the big
again, to steal what you just said, not for them. Voila. There's no other way to think about it than this was a bespoke, curated moment for me as a human being, not just a credit card that's hopefully going to ring through for a lot of money. And those connections, something that you remember, you internalize and share.
Yeah, and we have a million other examples, but we have books of them, and we use them to stimulate people because it feels so good to make people feel that good. And it takes little time, and it doesn't always have to be something for free or a lot of money. It's pretty powerful. So
what does take time, though, is to get your team on board with that whole notion of listening and responding in a way that they feel free to make that guest happy without feeling like they're risking anything. That seems to me the biggest challenge of all of this than finding a couple of tomatoes. How do you create that cultural sense that works for you?
Well, it's that easy and it's that hard. Again, something that,
Yeah.
because we have what we have, in our 300 plus employees in the organization, people who are 14 starting
Wow.
cleaning rooms like I did in the beginning of my career,
Good for you.
to people who are celebrating their 40th anniversary with us, right?
Wow.
Through our family business. And so in any given, we do these sessions, these training sessions, it's called R squared. It's kind of anyway, the name is funny, but it's a 2 to 3 hour session where we are repeatedly putting people through and demonstrating the importance of these concepts and illustrating how and what and why. And what I do is get up in front of the group and essentially say, err on the side of generosity. Nothing bad will happen to you. Your boss is not going to be mad. That is what most people are afraid of. Isn't that crazy?
Right. Mm-hmm. It is.
It is
crazy.
that
It's not crazy because every day I go on the Facebook news groups for hospitality and I see how these people despise the culture and their managers and the people who sign their paycheck. And it makes me sad every single time I see it.
And how can people, and listen, we're not perfect and they're grumpy people at work every day. I mean, we're not creating a utopia.
I do want to say, Dr. Producer Suzanne is always delightful.
Well, clearly. But hospitality work is hard. And so we try to create a space where people feel heard and they can be themselves, right? But they understand what's expected of them. And this notion of kindness and empathy, it's a business model. It works. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
It's not about, and the bottom line happens because of it. So it starts at it's what I get up in the morning and I'm obsessed with. And people are sick of me talking about it and I won't stop because the culture of who we are drives the guest experience. Mm-hmm. It has to be there. If it's fake and it's hollow and people are unhappy, I see no way that they can provide joyful experiences for people. It's impossible.
Right. Not only that, but you're also competing against every single thing in these people's lives. Yes. It's a complicated world that we live in right now, and we're being thrown so much information in this constant stream. It's impossible to keep up with it. Mm-hmm. I mean, you just watch the stuff that's coming out on one of the major streaming services. You could watch it and then you could forget about it almost instantly. So it's very hard to get things to stick in our psyches these days because our attention is so fragmented and brought to so many different places. So what you're talking about is more essential, I believe, than ever. And it's the key to not only making them happy now, but getting them to come back year after year after year so they can celebrate 40 years with you. Exactly.
I mean, I do think that a great hotel, and there are a lot of definitions of what great means to a lot of people.
That's right.
But if it can be a refuge, mm-hmm. kind of a little bit of an escape from your wonderful life for a weekend, or it can change if we do our jobs right. It can change the way people think, even not to be too, bold about saying that. But I think
you're not. You're right.
Yeah.
No, I think culture really, truly matters. And I love hearing that you're reinforcing that on a regular basis with your employees, because in my experience, having been a general manager, when you were able to create that culture and that reinforcement, then that sense of empowerment and that confidence that the associate has with their management, their leadership team can go far reaching to great tomato stories like you're sharing.
Yeah. Well, it's, this is a human being business that we're in. And we have, Mainstreet has been growing a lot over the last 10 years. And we have another, big leap, kind of hockey stick that we're about to go into with this opening and others. And so our culture and our commitment needs to be airtight, mm-hmm. I think, as we grow, because what I'm nervous about, and I guess anybody who grows a company, and I come from big retail operations that were 1,000 stores and, is getting bigger, that you would lose the core of your identity. And that's probably what keeps me up at night. So,
and that was going to be my next question. What keeps you up at night when you're going to plan to grow? Because really that is, I've lived through smaller companies becoming larger, or the mergers that we're seeing so much of now. And really those efforts that creating and keeping and maintaining that culture is so critically important to the success if you want to continue the way you've crafted your business to be.
I know. Well, it does keep me up at night. Luckily, we We have an amazing leadership team, and everyone who's really bought into this. and listen, we've had some change over the years, and it takes time, right?
Yeah, totally.
And I guess that is probably what keeps me up at night. But we've built what I'm excited about, and we've invested over the last year coming out of COVID, very intentionally, in amazing people, like really world-class leaders who know much more about this than I do and have much more hospitality experience than I do, and systems, right? So infrastructure that can help us to free ourselves up so that we can be paying more attention to the culture and to the people. So as counterintuitive as that sounds, we want to make sure that we're scalable, basically.
And that's essential, because you're really at an inflection point right now for the entire company, right? Because it's pretty good size for the size you're at. But if you're going to make that big hockey stick leap, that means you need to have a lot of infrastructure in place in order to ease those growing pains going forward. So makes a lot of sense. Now, the other thing that I think is really unique and interesting about your company is your experience. I go to all the major conferences throughout the years, and over the last 7, 8, 9 years or so, they've really been preaching, not necessarily executing as well as, but saying you've got to look at outside industries. You've got to think about how people outside hospitality are doing things. You are very focused on retail on the fashion side of the business. So you bring a lot of different things to you with the design sensibility, but also understanding how companies function in that level. So how have you been able to apply some of those lessons that you learned early in your career before becoming CEO of this company to what you're doing now?
Well, let's see. Try to answer
anywhere, and I'll take you through.
Yeah, no, it's so I grew up in a very creative family, right? With a mother, classical pianist. My father's an architect.
Awesome.
I was the most practical, business-like person probably in my family at that time. But I went to school and studied art, and then got very invested and interested in the retail business.
Right.
So through 25 years of growing and learning, and some of the best companies in the industry, that looking back were all family businesses, interestingly enough, where Ralph Lauren would show up every day and talk about why the company was started, and Les Wexner would show up every day and talk about why the company was started. So not strategically, but in hindsight, I look back, I think, wow, I spent 20 years learning not only about rigorous, scalable corporate functionality of a company, but also about what family business can become and still be genuine, right? Even when it's a public company at X billions of dollars.
Right.
So coming through that, and interestingly, our family business was evolving at the time when I was actually living in Paris, and in 2011. And the family business was evolving in such a way that it wasn't quite clear how the third generation was going to step up, if at all.
Right.
And I just...
probably between a mix of, is that what you want your destiny to be versus what maybe your family's goals are?
Correct. Right. And so it was a real toss up. Paris was pretty great. So,
really?
But there was so much.
By the way, it doesn't hold a candle to Smithtown, where I live.
Right. I mean, or North Adams, where I am. I mean,
you should try the croissants out here.
Yeah.
They're memorable. All the wrong reasons, but memorable.
Yeah. Well, Paris is overrated. I mean, everybody says it.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was a little bit of a light bulb moment with a lot of discussion and a lot of thoughtful succession planning with the family. But there's so much great material that had been created by the first two generations of our family, both in the hospitality world, kind of relationship capital, if you will. And so I thought, well, let's see what we can do with it. And it was, based on the principles that my grandparents and my stepmother and our whole extended family held really dear, which is essentially that bringing pleasure to people is one of life's greatest joys. And if we can do it in a way that enriches the communities where these hotels are, that are interconnected, this notion of interconnectedness, a great hotel, I think, is very interconnected to its community, to its artistic institutions,
Right.
to its academics, and to its locals, that you create a kind of a virtuous cycle, both economically and also socially and culturally.
That's beautiful. And speaking of doing things in that kind of a cycle, you're coming at us right now from Studio 9 at the Porch Inn.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. It's a recording studio, and the whole thing probably adds a nice element to the neighborhood, which creates that virtuous circle that you're talking about.
It does. It was an amazing investment by our partner and owner, Jack Wadsworth, and his family. And so a lot of things can happen in here, including world-class recording and performance. And it builds on, and we're doing it down the street at Hotel Down Street, which we acquired and we're repositioning as we speak, building on this cultural community, which is North Adams, which is unbelievable, off the charts. So, music, performance, fine art, food, energy, in a very unlikely location that has really been coming back from post-industrial period for about 20, 25 years.
So that adds another wrinkle to what you have to think about, where the community is and where it might be heading, and then programming for where it's going as opposed to where you've been.
Right. And we just love doing that. So I just came from a meeting to join you guys with an artist whose name I will not quite mention yet because it's a little premature, but who, for our new hotel over on the other side of North Adams, wants to essentially loan us his entire collection so we can steward it and have it at least be seen by people.
Right. That's pretty cool.
So how fabulous is that? So the lobby will potentially have this work in it that will, it's a celebration. I mean, it's just amazing. So we have these great venues that we can program, and Canoe Place is when you're ready, we need to talk about that because it's a pretty.
We do, and let's talk about it right now. So I'm a Long Island boy. I was born and bred on Long Island before living in the city for like 20 years or something like that. But the Hamptons is a big deal for me, and I used to go out to Southampton with my family, for example. So it's really great to see that you're taking a very historic structure and bringing it into the present. What is that experience going to be like at the Canoe Place Inn and Cottages?
Well, it's going to have a lot of dimensions to it. So we feel very privileged to be involved in this project with the Reckler Equity Group, who've owned the property for many years, and they were really patient and wanting to respond to the community and do the right thing with this property, which is the oldest recorded inn site in America, 1697.
It's crazy.
Awesome.
And revolutionary, Native Americans, indigenous peoples. I mean, it's kind of a hotbed. It's got a lot of energy, this particular piece of land.
Yeah.
And so the restoration will be historically accurate, essentially to what it was 100 years ago before it burned down, but very inspired and modern in all of its sort of attitude, if you will.
Yeah.
We have 20 rooms in the main inn, and then 5 cottages, and we're working with Workstead, who are an incredible interior design firm out of Brooklyn. And it's just it's got high character, a lot of idiosyncratic feeling, almost as if it's always been there, but it's modern. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny you should say that. The Del Coronado, the famous hotel in San Diego, for example. What I really loved what they did when they restored is they left it absolutely historic, but the rooms said, hey, this is what it felt like, but here's your TV, here's your air conditioning, here's everything you need to live in the 2020s,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this does that in a very sort of high touch, low tech feeling,
Good.
but there's incredible systems that run the place, right? So we also, one of the beauty of the property is this incredible ballroom that we've restored that where 350 people can get together.
Oh boy.
Ooh.
Right. Can you imagine
I can imagine that next June's already sold out for weddings is what I can imagine.
Oh my God. But it's, this is where Lucy and Desi and Frank Sinatra and everybody used to come and play and hang out. And then in the 70s and 80s, and into the 90s, it was a disco kind of gritty, fun place where you went to have a really, really, really good time, right?
Yeah.
So it's just being,
But
it's
particularly, just to give people context, that
Mhm.
part of Long Island, you might as well have been in another country back in those days.
Oh yeah, it was a major adventure. And
Yeah.
Hampton Bays is a wonderful community that I'm just getting to know. But it's distinct. It's not Southampton or East Hampton or, you know,
They're
it's
all a little different.
it's more grounded. It's more full-time people live there, and so we want to be very respectful as to how we operate. And this is a place where locals and, you know, tourists from all over the world are going to rub elbows and create connection.
Yeah.
It's very historical. As a fellow Long Islander myself, used to going out to East Hampton. I'm excited to see what y'all are able to finalize and put together and really embrace that history in that area.
Yeah. And we're an hour closer to the city.
Yeah, totally.
You can at least stop in for dinner maybe on a Thursday night, and then you keep going out to your East Hampton.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. Well, when you're ready to open, I told your team that we should do a live broadcast from over there.
Oh, let's do it.
I'm a Long Island guy. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, that'd be great. And that would make a lot of sense. We're early August is our.
Well, Sarah, I got a question for you. You are doing something that many hoteliers fear. Something that they wouldn't do is operate hotels that are fewer than 50 rooms. How are you so confident about it and finding success for your company and your owners?
Well, it is tricky. It is not, it takes some, it has taken us a lot of study and trial and error over the last few years. And essentially that's why we have built our internal home office infrastructure, so that we can better support those 47, 45 room hotels. Porches is 47 where I am now. And make the scale work. So, for example, you know, the systems and the support that we provide for each property, and marketing and HR and accounting and all of that, we've been able to hone it
right
so that it makes sense on the P&L.
Right. So instead of, to use round numbers, instead of having a whole ton of expenses related to that, you're able to split it between all the properties, and therefore it's more like a sliver.
Well, we can do that. We sort of amortize it a little bit that way, making sure everybody gets the right level of support. But also at a 45 or 50 room hotel, you can't support a whole HR person and accounting person. And so we're able to maximize
that's cool
profitability through the better systems that we're building.
Is this your preferred niche, or do you want to go with properties that are larger but kind of have the same emotional connection? Yes and yes. So we need, for Mainstreet to grow in the way that we want to, we need a couple bigger properties, and we're in some very interesting conversations right now. That being said, we're building sort of a good, better, best strategy where we've got these kind of affordable but design-driven hotels. We've got a great sort of very good section of beautiful boutiques, kind of hammets where you are now, and porches and that kind of thing, in that, you know, in those rates that are in the middle there. And then we're building our best level, which is Canoe Place, which is by definition more in the luxury sector, even though we want to be very low-key luxury. Yeah. From an ADR standpoint, we're definitely in the higher range. I took a look.
Yeah, I know. So the point is, it could either be higher room count, or if the overall revenue is high enough, then it makes sense for Mainstreet. But we do need to be choosy about the projects that we do, and we're now getting more and more choosy, especially about who we work with.
Right.
Making sure those relationships are really good.
Particularly if you're going to make that leap, you don't want to enter into a relationship that becomes a very negative time suck that'll take away from your ability to deliver great service to other companies. But I'm curious, are you going to stay in the New England, Mid-Atlantic area to start, or are you going to take the leap and go across the country?
Well, you know, it's so tempting because there are a lot of cool projects happening. I have a call this afternoon about one in California and another one.
Yeah, but it screws up your ability to have regional people. And,
you know, I mean, I love, part of it is, I'll never say never. Okay. I don't want to put strict limitations around what we will do or not do. But there's so much more to do in New England, number one. I grew up outside of Philadelphia with my mom, and when we weren't here in the summertime. And so that whole world is interesting to me. So kind of coming down the Eastern Seaboard, absolutely. And consulting on projects that are a bit farther afield, very open to it. But I also like to physically go to the properties. I like to know the names of the people who work with us. I like to not have to get on a plane every other day. So that may influence our regional strategies.
I like that.
That's going to go to the culture, right? If you can't be there and you can't connect and you can't, as you had spoken about your previous experience, had that opportunity where Ralph Lauren could come in, you want to be able to craft that component to keep that culture going. Certainly when you're traveling that level of a distance, it makes that impact much harder.
Yeah, and it's not all about me by any stretch. I mean, we have amazing leaders on our core leadership team who all are moving around to these properties all the time and spreading the message, right? But we want to do things credibly. You know, I have a lot of wonderful colleagues in the industry, all of whom I admire, who are growing fast or growing over here and growing over there. And as long as we do have investors, we raised some capital last year, but that's not what's driving our growth. Really, what's interesting is providing more experiences for people to grow within the organization, being able to create more scale and provide better service to each hotel. So that's what motivates us. And yes, we need to make money and we need to make sure we're fiscally responsible, but it's, it's not always our primary motivation. Maybe I'm not supposed to say that.
No, you know what? Making money is not my primary motivation. The reason why I make money is because I'm passionate and work hard at what I love to do. And money always finds it. The money always works itself. It does. Yeah, if you put in the hard work, the universe will reward you. Don't put in the wrong hard work, the right hard work, everybody.
Glenn, I'm so with you, and I feel it's interesting. I feel as a professional, shifting out of 20 years of being a corporate citizen, which was great, to being an entrepreneur was terrifying.
Yeah, of course.
Especially during COVID, when you're literally just trying to make sure people get paid and are taken care of.
I can imagine, yeah.
But now that we're just getting our heads above water and really getting real momentum, it's the most rewarding experience. I just love it.
So before we wrap up, Sarah, what's the biggest thing that you learned about yourself because of all the challenges that we've all faced in the last few years?
That's a refreshing question because everyone's always asking about,
forget the business.
How do you find staff?
Forget about the business. I want to know what you learned about yourself. For me, it was like I learned that I'm much stronger than I thought I was. I thought I would just roll over, but I saw other people roll over and I chose not to. So that's what I learned about myself.
Mm-hmm. I learned the same thing. I think I felt, what I learned was, or reinforced for myself, is that the quality of the people that you put around you, because I was, it was terrifying, right? But I had some incredible people who I could lean on, who understood the economics of this closure that we had to do for the business and the capital. The thing you fear is just running out of money and going out of business.
Yeah.
And so the president of our company is a guy named Joe Gallo, and he's just unbelievable and really steered us through that. Mm-hmm. And I learned about myself that even more important to surround yourself with people who not only have your best interest in mind, but really understand the world in a way that you don't quite.
Right.
And I try to do that with everybody on our team, but it was profound, the whole experience. And we're here to tell the tale. And we're doing better than ever. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably a good place to end it. Sarah Eustis, Mainstreet Hospitality. Find them at mainstreethospitalitygroup.com. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Glenn and Suzanne. It was a pleasure.
You were wonderful. So let's stay in touch. I tried to connect with you on LinkedIn. So good. Just find me.
We'd love to have you come down to Canoe Place as soon as we're open.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. Take care. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, Dr. Producer, what'd you learn from that?
I am excited to hear about a company investing so much in their employees for a cultural aspect, because really, when you look at where we are in our industry with retention and with independent properties, you've got to keep your employees. And so you've got to invest in them. And I really believe it starts with that culture. And so it was really refreshing to hear what Sarah's doing with her team to keep them engaged and delivering that experience for their customers so that it truly is an experience.
Right. Beautiful. And, I love that they're working really hard and understanding what that really means. Too many people out there say they understand what an experience is, then wind up delivering the same old that we get every single where we go. To truly differentiate yourself from the competition is what she said. You have to create hospitality that's for them, not to them. That's what I'm going to take away from this show, Suzanne.
So many great little nuggets of information today.
Yeah, I loved it. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Speaking of great nuggets of information, here's a great one. Download us on audio version if you're watching us on video. You listen on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, et cetera, et cetera. And if you're listening to us, why not give us a shot? Watch us live on video or on our accounts. You can find Anthony and R at our respective LinkedIn accounts. NoVacancyNews.com, our Facebook pages, et cetera, et cetera. He's at Anthony Hotels. I'm at Traveling Glenn. You're at Dr. Producer Suzanne, I suppose.
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me at Indian River State College.
That's right. You can find her here behind the scenes every day at 12 o'clock. Thank you so much for being here, everybody. Remember, you've got one life, so blaze on and
find your passion.
Oh, I like that. See you tomorrow.